Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Florida Gator fans this Sunday afternoon that might fly under the radar nationally, but for Florida Gator fans have to be fired up about this one as Billy Napier goes out and hires a special teams coordinator in Joe Houston coming over from the New England Patriots. Want to talk about Joe Houston, what he brings to the Florida Gators, talk a little bit about what we're seeing from Billy Napier in terms of how he's going about changing this program heading into 2024. But the thing that comes to my mind is in an era of college football that is ever changing, you see a lot of coaches kind of get stuck in their ways. I think Dabo Swinney comes to mind probably off the top of your head, but to see Billy Napier as a young head coach, still this is a very big job for Billy Napier coming from Louisiana and taking a look at this program and identifying the spots that need to have change and then going out and making those changes. I think that gives you a lot of optimism. Many of you guys know I've been kind of a Billy Napier defender for a decent amount of his tenure in Gainesville, but I've been very critical of some of the decisions, and the special teams has been something that has been on the top of my list. And to see him go out and make a change, I think that is really exciting for Florida fans. No longer you hope that special teams is a liability, and maybe in 2024 it becomes an asset for this Florida Gators program. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys, and I can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown over the last couple of weeks, whether it's on the high school recruiting trail, transfer portal. Been a blast talking about this program. You guys have shown a ton of support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with Joe Houston first and then give you guys some of my takes on some of the broad changes you're seeing to this coaching staff during this offseason. Many of you guys have asked for my opinion in the comments section, so I'll give you guys some of my thoughts. But let's start with Joe Houston, a guy that when you do some reading on Joe Houston, I'll say hands up, I wasn't too familiar with Joe Houston, had to go back and read about his time at Iowa State and New England. And the more you read about him, the more you start to understand that he's a very well-respected special teams mind in the industry of football, right? And I'll tell you what, Bill Belichick, as a Buffalo Bills fan, Bill Belichick, phenomenal coach for New England for a very long time. And one thing that he did not take lightly was special teams. And that was a team that always played top-notch special teams. And for Bill Belichick to go out and hire a guy like Joe Houston, I think kind of speaks to what Joe Houston brings as a special teams mind to this Florida Gators program. And you take a look at Joe Houston at the college level, did a phenomenal job at Iowa State before going to New England. A couple of things that really excite me about this hire is, one, being hired as an analyst, so a special teams coordinator, but not necessarily counting for one of those on-field coaching staff hires, which I think is really nice. And for Florida fans, you are not necessarily, I guess at the very least, you want to see this at the very least, and I mean at the very least, you want to see Florida play good special teams, but at the very least, you don't want to see the Florida Gators be a liability on special teams like it was last year. You kind of got the feeling that they didn't practice it. They just kind of trotted out there and hoped for the best on special teams, which is completely unacceptable. At the end of the day, yes, offense, defense is important, but there is a third element of football that you can win games with, you can lose games with. And you see the top-notch teams, they play phenomenal special teams because it is where you find hidden yards. It is where you can make plays that change the trajectory of games. And too often, the Florida Gators, whether it's missing kicks, whether it's having too many men on the field, it would cost the Florida Gators games in 2023. The lack of discipline, the poor execution in special teams, and at the very least, with the hire like Joe Houston, you feel like it's not going to be a liability. But for Florida fans, what you're most excited for is it might even become an asset in 2024. Because again, Joe Houston, a very good special teams mind, whether it's punt, kick returns, kickoffs, all those things that play a role in college football. You expect this Florida Gators program to kind of take a step in the right direction. So Joe Houston, in my mind, a massive hire. And again, I don't think the national media, this is going to get many headlines, but for Florida fans that watched every Saturday, you have to be fired up about this addition. Now, I want to talk about a few other changes that Billy Napier's made, and we've referenced them, but we haven't really taken a deep dive into them. And one name that I haven't really talked about enough is Ron Roberts coming over from Auburn. And I've exchanged some messages, and we've kind of chatted, I guess, in the comment section about Ron Roberts, this is a defensive mind that I am extremely excited about coming to Florida. Now, a guy like Austin Armstrong, many of you guys know I'm excited about Austin Armstrong and the future he has as being a defensive coordinator in Gainesville, but he's young. He's inexperienced, and he had a young and inexperienced team, and you saw those growing pains on full display in 2023. What does Ron Roberts kind of represent? A veteran mind that's been around the sport for a very long time, coming in and kind of working in lockstep with Austin Armstrong, who, again, is, I think, a brilliant defensive mind. He's just young and inexperienced. I think Ron Roberts comes in and kind of Austin Armstrong represents a guy Austin Armstrong can kind of lean on for some of that experience. And Ron Roberts, in my mind, is a phenomenal defensive coach. You go back to his time. I mean, he's worked with Billy Napier at Louisiana before he got to Florida. So you know that Billy Napier knows what Ron Roberts is about. So that makes you feel a little bit better about the hire. But more importantly, you go back to his time at Baylor. Baylor had one of the best defenses, not only in the Big 12, but in the country during Ron Roberts' tenure. And he got, because Baylor's team stunk that one year, I don't think it was on Ron Roberts. And I think that shows because Auburn goes out and hires him as their defensive coordinator. And that Auburn defense was damn solid in 2023. I think it would even be better from a numbers standpoint had that offense not been a complete liability. And so now Ron Roberts coming to Florida, I think he is a phenomenal defensive mind. I've been impressed where everywhere he's been during his career, has head coaching experience, but more importantly, I think is a nice veteran defensive mind for a young and up-and-coming defensive coordinator like Austin Armstrong to lean on. The next hire that I think is, again, one that you might not be talking about a ton, but I think you're really excited about the changes they made to the strength and conditioning room. I mean, Craig Fitzgerald coming in, NFL experience. He's been a Power 5 head strength and conditioning coach at multiple different spots, including Tennessee, and has that NFL background. That was another thing that we've kind of talked about with this Florida team just not being physical at the point of attack, not really seeming like they're the bigger, stronger players on the football field at times. And they recruit to that level. Now you want to start seeing that physical maturation kind of match it. And I thought this team, and I think a lot of Florida fans would probably agree with this, at times was a little soft at the point of attack. And so you make changes to your strength and conditioning room, keeping this team healthy, developing their bodies. I really like that hire. And then a guy like Will Harris coming in as the defensive backs coach. I mean, he has a very, very strong track record at Washington, developing guys in the back end, has done a very nice job in the transfer portal, attracting some talent. I think that was a really good hire. And then Gerald Chapman coming from Tulane. I mean, he has done a phenomenal job. What Billy Napier, I think, has focused on doing is going out and getting guys. I think Gerald Chapman is kind of the perfect example of, all right, a coach that might be at the group of 5 level, but has done a phenomenal job developing guys at his position group. And you've seen Gerald Chapman come in and already get it going on the recruiting trail a little bit. And so you take a look at what Florida's done in the offseason. Yes, they've gotten active in the portal. They had a nice run on the recruiting trail. But I think the thing that you're most excited about and kind of keeping in the back of your mind is that Billy Napier is still kind of getting his feet wet at a program of this caliber. This is not Louisiana. This is the Florida Gators. This is one of the blue blood premier programs in all of college football. There is a lot to being a head coach, and you kind of knew Billy Napier would have some growing pains. But what you're most excited about is him seeing, all right, what are we doing well within this program, and what needs to be changed. And I think after 2 years, he's identified spots that needs to be changed, and he's gone out and make those changes. And a lot of coaches don't have that, have a little bit too much of an ego and don't make those changes. I think Billy Napier doing that, I think, says a lot about maybe the future of him at Florida. Now, the last thing we got to talk about, potential offensive coordinator hire. And we'll see if that's in the works. That is probably the last stone that I would like to see get knocked down in terms of, all right, Billy Napier, let's go find a very good play caller. It's a very attractive position. You have a guy like DJ Lagway coming in the 2024 class. There is going to be a lot of offensive coordinators that want to come into this program and coach quarterback like that. In my mind, I think you should go make it happen. Those are some of my ideas. Again, Joe Houston, phenomenal hire. Really happy to see what Billy Napier's doing, kind of reshaping this coaching staff, reshaping what this program looks like and how it's run from an operation standpoint. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.